Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show.
You have a great analytics program and you say, okay, I get these insights. Okay, great. You got this insight. Now what next? Okay. So what do you do with that insights? How do you convert that action insights into decisions and decisions into actions? Right. Like the main thing is, unfortunately, what I've seen is people look at data and analytics more from a technical and data perspective, but ultimately it's all about people.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Strength in the Numbers. Now, you just heard from this week's guest mentor, Prashanth Southekal. And we're super lucky to have Prashanth on the show today. He was recommended by a previous guest mentor on the show, and Prashanth is just an absolute guru when it comes to data analytics and actually driving better business performance. Prashanth's rather special in another way is that he's not strictly come from a finance background. His career started out in IT and then evolved into Lean Six Sigma and data analytics. But everything that Prashanth shares in the show is all about driving better decision making, better performance. In actual fact, helping us be better in finance so we can help the business do better and more constructive things. So in this episode, we deconstruct together his top 3 practices to drive business performance using data analytics. One of my favorite things Prashanth mentions is the importance of viewing analytics in terms of products as opposed to projects. And he's very optimistic about how post-COVID-19 that data analytics will play an even bigger role than before. So if you're looking to get a head start as we start emerging from this pandemic, this could be a key podcast for you to listen into. Another one of my favorites that Prashanth mentions is the importance to actually question the cost of coming up with the KPI and putting it on a dashboard. In effect, flipping it around. So rather than looking at the value of having that KPI on a dashboard, what's the cost of not having it on that dashboard? Prashanth shares a great example about some work he's doing with India's largest utility company in terms of helping their data literacy and their data analytics culture. Something he's very passionate about. It's a great way to actually improve the outcomes in society actually with data analytics. So I'm really delighted for Prashanth that he's involved in that and he shares that with us. But also there's really great advice in here specifically for those in startups or small companies to actually get a jump start in using data analytics, and we go through 3 areas where that can be also done. So look, hope you enjoyed this episode. There's an absolute bucket load in here. If you want to follow up on the detailed timestamp show notes, key quotes, resources and ways to connect with Prashanth, who also mentions a couple of the books he's written, you can find those and more at SITNshow.com. And we always love it when not only guest mentors share their advice with you, but you share that advice with others. So you can share this episode with your colleagues and friends on all the major platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube and Spotify. And I think you've heard enough from me for now, so without further ado, over to Prashanth and the show. Prashanth, welcome to the show.
Yeah, my pleasure, Andy. Glad to be here.
It's great. It's our pleasure to have you. And it's even a greater pleasure when a former mentor on the show recommended you need to get Prashanth on. So, our guest mentor would have been familiar with you, but some of our audience maybe not as familiar with your background. So would you mind maybe sharing with them a brief history of your journey in data analytics?
Yeah, sure. I started working in IT in India, and I'm from India. I moved to Belgium for a couple of years, and then I came back to India before moving to Canada in 2009. So since then, I've been living in Canada. And so my journey in data analytics, because I look at data analytics as integral part of every work you do, like whether you are a homemaker, whether you are a business professional, whether you are a data scientist, or whatever it is, data and analytics are integral. But the realization that happened to me was when I was in GE. I enrolled myself for the Lean Six Sigma course, which was for 5 days. And that's where I got a formal training on applying data and analytics in business. So what GE called as Lean Six Sigma in the 2000s was basically today people call as data science, in my view. So that's where I started my formal data analytics journey. And then after the program, I went to the manager there and I told him that I'm very intrigued with this and I want to teach. So he said, sure. So go for this 2 weeks training program. You are like a certified trainer for Lean Six Sigma. And it all started from there. And these days, I've been using pretty much the foundation has still been the Lean Six Sigma concepts I learned in GE, but I have, branded itself as a data analytics consultant and trainer. So quite a few of the things which I talk and teach is basically some of the things I learned. And today I've been using it for quite a few companies. In the last 20 years of my career, I've consulted for the big ones such as Shell, Procter & Gamble, GE, of course, and Apple. But I also consulted for small and medium companies, such companies with just 20 people in their offices, and how we can apply data and analytics to make them more efficient. So whether you're looking at a company with 20 people or a company with 400,000 people like GE, when I was there, everybody is talking about data and analytics and how that can improve business performance.
And that's really, I guess, why Jesper, who was on the show previously, said you got to get Prashanth on, because it's a very important topic at the moment. It's something our audience are interested in. And also, our audience are both from small and larger enterprises. So it's music to their ears, saying it's relevant to everyone and integral to not just ourselves in finance and accounting, but homemakers and so on and so on. So I suppose in terms of driving business performance, it's no accident that you know your area inside out, Prashanth, and you've got a book out at the moment. And in there you list out the top sort of 10 practices we should be doing. I mean, what are the main ones for us in finance and accounting to be focusing on to drive business performance with data analytics?
The great point, Andy. Like, the reason why I wrote this book is basically whether it's the small companies or the big ones, wherever I go, I see that analytics programs are challenged. But I also seen some places where it has worked really well. Then I said, okay, what are the patterns where things have failed and what are the places where things have really worked? Then I started doing some research, and after 2 years of research, I came up with this book, Analytics Best Practices. It's just not just my thought process or my hypothesis. I've also consulted with quite a few people, attended conferences, taught, spoken, and everything. So it's all, and almost today, they just released about a couple of weeks back, and almost like I have some great endorsements from some of the big names like Doug Lenny, the Informatics guru, or the big data guru, Randy Bean, who is a regular contributor at Harvard Business Review, and Professor Michael Wade, who is a professor at IMD School of Business in Switzerland, and all those big shots, and Upen Varanasi, who is the CEO of Riversand, all those big shots. But coming to your question about what are the top three, if I had to pick out of those 10, in fact, all 10 are good, but if I had to pick the top three, yeah. The first one I would say is I would start with data quality. Number one, why data quality? I define analytics. Today, if you ask somebody what's analytics, everybody has their own definition of analytics. But I define analytics as using data to answer your business questions. So that means data and questions are the fundamental building blocks of analytics. No data, no questions means there's no analytics. So you stop your program, go and find out the good data and what questions you're trying to answer. So quality data is one of the fundamental things. And I talk about getting good quality data as one of the best practices. And of course, in many places, there is no good quality data. So I also suggested some workarounds. When you don't have good quality data, what do you do? So I also, yes. This book is more about a prescriptive, not just a preaching thing. Amazon did this, Facebook did this, and all those things. People know that. They can Google it and find out. So this is a prescription. Yeah. So that's the first part. The second thing is the reason why I see analytics projects are challenged is to treat them as projects and not as products. So this is what we need to look at holistic solutions and look at the whole solutions as a product, which are scalable, which are repeatable, which are there for a long-term purpose, not just do this project and just run away from that kind of.
It just seems that sort of stop-start thing just doesn't make any sense. I mean, at least with products, there's a value proposition there, right? There's some need you've got to fulfill, and is it really worth fulfilling it if it's not like an ongoing need? It doesn't make any sense. But so many people do that way. I don't get it. Well, why do they do that? I mean, why is there that sort of mentality of treating it like a transaction or a project as opposed to a product?
Okay, so in my view, it is ultimately, while we talk about data and technology and all those things, it might look like it is a techie concept, but actually behind it, it's all about people and their interests. So one of the reasons why we look at analytic solutions as a project is mainly because most of the businesses are structured in a very siloed way. They look at a line of business rather than
Yeah.
procurement, HR, trading, costing, safety, and all those things, rather than looking at the whole enterprise. So if you look at whole enterprise, it would be much better where we think about long term. Like I was in a project. By the way, Andy, I have a third best practice, which I'll come to you as well. But let's finish this. I was in a project and we were about 25 people in the room, all senior directors, VPs, and all those people. So I just told them we are having this discussion about all these challenges, and everybody was talking about their respective area, HR, finance, procurement, and all those things. And in the meeting, I just told after a few minutes, it's great that we have representation from HR, from procurement, from asset management, from finance, from costing, and all those groups. But unfortunately, we don't have representation from the company. we don't have anybody representing this company XYZ, right?
Yes, yes,
we have
yes,
everybody
yes.
representing, talking about their own interest, but nobody's talking about the company I just told. So when I said that, for a minute, I thought probably I'll be fired for saying this. It was one of the moments that really built the credibility in the company. Then for a minute, there was like a few seconds of silence in the room. Then after that,
Yeah.
people started realizing what I meant. And after that, that statement brought a lot of credibility to me in the company, saying that, okay,
That
this
is
guy is
awesome.
not like a siloed person. He's not going to play for, he's not going to help this guy or this guy. He's going to help the company.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's great, and I think that's something that plays well to the our audience, from a finance and accounting perspective, is that broad across silo viewpoint that we have. It's like same with the data and same with access to decision makers. It comes across all silos because our duty is there to protect shareholders as well as the other stakeholders. So it is the company that's at interest as opposed to one particular functional area. So that's a really good point. I think will resonate with our audience, Prashant. And I suppose the other aspect to pull on that though, like that product view, is the other point. If it's a good product, it should be applicable across the company, not just to one
Absolutely.
particular area. So like again, it's just like it seems odd that, and maybe you just hit the nail on the head. That's probably why sometimes data and analytics doesn't get the traction it should in driving business performance.
Absolutely. You bet, Andy. And the third point, which I want to talk about, my best practice is look at analytics holistically as a way people work and behave rather than look at more from a technical perspective. So if you look at the way, the teaching is different from the way things work, right? When I teach analytics, I say there are three types of analytics: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. Okay. But the way things work in business is not like three siloed thing. It all works together naturally, how people work. Let's look at how things work. Like you go to your manager and says, your manager comes to you and says, okay, tell me how much money we made in 2018. So you go and say 5 million. Okay, what's the next obvious question he would be having? Okay, he's going to ask, tell me how much money we are likely to make in 2022. Okay, that's where predictive analytics come. Okay, you go to him and say, oh, let me run my regression and I'll come to you. So you run your regression models and go to him and says, oh, we are going to make 6.5 million. Okay, so what's the next obvious question he has asked? Okay, my target is 8 million. Tell me what are the factors which are going to help me make this 8 million, right? So this is how people work and behave, not by siloed thing. Descriptive is dashboarding, predictive is regression, and prescriptive is optimization. It doesn't work like that. Think analytics as the way people naturally work.
And I term that like a ladder thinking. It's the first question's maybe the first rung or second rung on the ladder. Then you go up the next rungs of the ladder because that's the obvious next question. And to get to the real top of what you're trying to add from value and business performance, it's the next rung. It's sort of what levers do I need to pull? What factors do I need to consider to get to my target? The next bit. So, Prashant, that's a nice little way of looking at it that you sort of said. It's that progression. It's obvious questions, and it's a great way of getting ahead of what people need. I suppose, again, are there sort of any things that our audience could do to try and think of analytics more holistically? Does those questions, anything else we should be doing?
Of course, there are main things. It all starts with senior management support and building the data literacy, right? If the senior management support is there, not there, just because somebody has read an article while sitting in the flight and in the flight magazine and says, I want to do machine learning, for example, without understanding the ground reality. So it's basically the program is going to fail. So one thing is data literacy in the company. Like today, I'm talking to India's biggest utilities company. And fortunately, they understand the value of data literacy. So they said, okay, before we start our middle management and about data analytics, let's talk to the senior management about what the value data and analytics bring to the company. So we are starting a 10-hour program just for the C-suite and the board members to talk about data analytics. So this is a great initiative. Very few companies do about this, do about educating their, like McKinsey did a study and they said just 18% of the people in the board and C-suite understand the good value of data and analytics, which is pathetic. Given that if you look at the top 5 companies in the world in terms of market capitalization today, all are data and tech companies. But unfortunately, on the other hand, we just have just 1 out of 6 people understanding in the board what the value of data analytics is all about. So it's a very unfortunate.
Well, actually, because you actually preempted my next question, which was actually what are the common pitfalls? And I think that's probably the first one that sort of starts in one way at the top. You know, if they're not sort of appreciating the value of this, it's not going to get much traction in the organization or the culture. And the other pitfalls that we should be aware of to navigate better data analytics for business performance.
These are the things like which I would say getting good quality data, having the answering the right questions. Like analytics is all about questioning, right? So if you how to formulate the questions is also one of the important things. It's not just because I want analytics because I read it Fight magazine that analytics is what helped Amazon become successful, right? So it's all about you and your company. And you need to have the right kind of questions. Like, for example, I always say when we design a dashboard, okay, I want this KPI, I want this KPI. Okay, great, you want this KPI. So tell me, what is the value of knowing and what is the value of not knowing?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And I like the way you did the second aspect, right? Is people might be able to figure out the value of knowing, but that not knowing, what's the cost of not knowing this information? Because and then comparing it against other requests and doing the most important one first. I think we sometimes just jump too fast into these initiatives and they turn out to be the wrong ones.
Absolutely. And who wants this KPI? Okay, yeah. You have a great analytics program and you say, okay, I get these insights. Okay, great. You got this insight. Now what next?
Yeah, what next?
Okay. So what do you do with that insights? How do you convert that action insights into decisions and decisions into actions? Right? Like the main thing is, unfortunately, what I've seen is people look at data and analytics more from a technical and data perspective, but ultimately it's all about people.
That's an interesting observation, actually, that you can know all the technical stuff and the data science elements and all the statistical pieces, whatever, but it does come back to people, at the end of the day, and it's actually doing something with that information. And I think that's the challenge to our audience as well, is helping our organizations do something with the analytics out there, foster some sort of action, deploying some solutions, moving the business forward, or moving the business in a way that reduces unacceptable risks or something like that. So Prashanth, really appreciate you sort of going through those items, and that sounds fantastic as well about the work you're doing with the large Indian utility. Is there anything else that's currently exciting you about your present work?
So these days, at least in the last 5 years, I've been wearing 3 hats. One is as a consultant, where I go and embed myself into as a team member in one of those companies, help them with this analytics, digital initiatives, whatever it is, whether it's an SAP solution optimization or building a mobility solution or implementing a new solution, whatever it is, help the team as a consultant implement the solution, number one. Next is I also help companies advise, mostly the product companies and the startups on the go-to-market strategy and how to build great products so that they can take it to the market. So I'm advising 3 companies, one in India, in Bangalore, one in Calgary, and other one in Fremont in California. Yeah. So the third thing which I do is education, where I teach at 2 universities, University of Calgary and IE Business School in Madrid. But I do every 2 months, I do an analytics, 10-hour analytics training over Zoom. So anybody in the world can come and join. I frequently do webinars for all these companies. So yesterday I had one as well. So every week there's one webinar which I do. And these kind of interviews. So this week, this is the 3rd interview which I'm doing. I had one on Tuesday, one yesterday, and one with you today. So if you look at a typical day, for example, what I do is when I get up in the morning, I just check my mails and everything. Then if I don't have any meetings, then I start doing my consulting work. So the lunch breaks are mainly what I have reserved for all this kind of kind of educational activities such as webinars, LinkedIn, and everything. And in the evenings, I will finish my consulting work at around 4:35. Then I start for the next 2 hours is all about advisory and trainings. So what excites me is basically, I'm talking to diverse set of people from all over the world, from India to UK, like you, to North America, and understanding what's happening. So like yesterday, if you had to take how my day went yesterday, the morning I had an interview with a company in South Africa. Wow. Then I finished it. Then for 3 hours I was working. Then in the afternoon, I had a meeting with one of my advisory companies. They needed some advice on the go-to-market strategy. Then Riverside, there was a webinar with Riverside, which is an MDM company. So almost like 160 people turned up for the webinar. Then after that, it was a meeting with the CIO. So he had some challenges and he wanted my perspective. He just wanted to pick my brain. Then after that, I came back to my consulting world, and then I was working. Then in the evening, it was again back to the guys in Fremont, and then again back to my client in India, the utilities company. So helping them with their data literacy program. So bottom line, if you look at the whole thing, if I had to draw one common theme about what it is, everybody looks at a promise of data and analytics. They see data and analytics is the future. Yeah. So, and all want to know how they can realize the value of data and analytics for better business performance.
You know what? It's all I'm going to say. It's about damn time. We got there, and they're certainly keeping you busy with it.
Yeah, it's busy. But today in the COVID times, whatever studies you see, whatever scenarios people are talking about in the post-COVID world, one scenario is common. The data and analytics is going to play a more important role. Whether you talk to World Economic Forum or Forbes or McKinsey or any of those big shots, everybody is talking data and analytics is going to play a bigger role than it was before. Before it was really big, but it's going to play a more important role.
So I think, the worst thing to do here is knee-jerk reactions coming out of this pandemic and preparing for the future. It's got to be founded around data-driven decisions. And again, in finance, putting cash forward, and that opportunity cost of not doing something. So, I think the future does look bright, and there are opportunities for audience to go embrace. Another positive thing, actually, Prashanth, in terms of what you're describing your workload as, was it seems to be a good mix between very large organizations and smaller entities. And for our listeners, for maybe perhaps smaller companies, not perhaps the large corporate finance teams, but the smaller, 4, 5, 6, maybe up to 20 employees in finance. Is there sort of any advice that you would give them to kick off a data analytics program to drive better business performance and start to productize it in their business?
Okay, great question, Andy. Number one, if you go for a company with 20 people, the way their budgets, their maturity is very different from the Shells and the Gs of the world. It's two complete things. But the good thing is I have worked for both. So I know what works in the small companies and what works in these big, large companies. So when I so let's assume, since your question is about the small companies, like ones with, say, 20 to 50 people, for instance, the first thing which I want to say is, what's your objective? Yeah. So what do you want to see yourself in 5 years? Like when I asked a founder about this company, so what's your objective about this in 5 years? He wanted to, of course, everybody wants to make money. That's obvious. But at the same time, what's your roadmap? What's your strategy to make money?
Yes.
Right? So ultimately, he said, after a few discussions, he said, I want to exit. Okay, that's a great thing. How do you want to exit? By selling it to a system integrator or to a big four consulting company. Okay, that's fine. I'm not saying that that's bad. It's okay. But initially, tell me your strategy. Tell me your objective. Yeah. It's not just about a very fluffy thing about making money or customer service and everything. It has to be a very tangible metric. Yes. Okay, so I said, okay, this is your thing. So your business strategy is this. Now tell me, that's your strategy. Tell me your objectives, which you are going to do to achieve that strategy. Which is very clear. Like one thing is, if you talk about the Shells and the Gs, for example, there is no way your CEO will have time for you to talk about this. Whereas in a small companies, you can directly talk to your CEO, right?
Exactly.
You just send a mail and he's sitting right in front of you have to get up from your cubicle and go and talk to him. Yeah. And he's always willing to talk. That's the advantage you have in the small companies. So tell me about your strategy. Tell me your strategy, objectives. And then what I ask them is come with a 3x3 matrix, which is the purpose of data, which is compliance, operations, and analytics, versus the purpose of business, which is customer service, employee engagement, and asset optimization. So I just say that, okay, let's make a 3x3, and what are the different initiatives, which buckets to fall. Okay, now this is all done. This shouldn't take more than 2 days. If I'm talking to the CEO, if CEO doesn't have answers to these things, and even after 2 days he doesn't know what he's doing, that means it's a red flag. So people like me have to think whether you are in the right place.
Yeah.
Or
That's
start
a good
looking for your
answer.
next gig.
Yeah, that is a good answer, actually. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah. So coming to this, so for companies to go ahead from this, it is think big, start small. Okay, now you have your 2-year or 5-year vision. Start small. Look at a particular use case. Start selling that use cases and make it work. So that, look at microtransactions. Don't start boiling the ocean, but keep in mind, you have to boil the ocean at some point in time, but start small with relevant use cases.
Yeah, I mean, it might sound a bit gory, but I heard the expression. What's the only way to eat an elephant? It's piece by piece. That's it. At some point you'll finish eating the elephant, but it's piece by piece. You got to start somewhere. So no, great advice, Prashanth. And actually, thinking about it, you've been giving us great advice on the show so far. What's been the best bit of advice you've ever received?
I'll split it into two. Say professional, more like long-term professional. Other one is analytics advice. If you look at on the personal front, the best advice I got was when I was with GE, and my manager said, "Your reputation is everything. So you work for your reputation, not for money, not for promotions or whatever. You work for your reputation." So as my hair is turning gray.
It's only slightly grey, Prashanth.
Yeah, slightly gray. It's getting gray every day. I have more and more realized the value of that statement. It might look like a simple. Warren Buffett said the same thing. You take 20 years to build your reputation and 5 minutes to destroy it. So I have realized that we are all working for reputation and respect. So that's why the advantage. I have been working on this, like this interview, for example. Why I'm doing it, to build my brand, to build my reputation, all those things. Then on analytics, the best advice I got was from one of my professors at MBA, where he said analytics is like a compass. It is not a GPS. So when I think about it, the whole process of getting good data, taking that good data and putting your statistical models and getting insights, there is always some kind of uncertainty or subjectivity you go with. Say the quality data, for example, there is no state like perfect quality data. You always work with some amount of data which is not of good quality. You work with that. You compromise accuracy versus correctness, and you go for that. When you start deriving your regression models, you look at different p-values and say, okay, this is good. I can still absorb it, though it might not be the right number. So at any point in time throughout your analytics program, when you do a data storytelling, for example, there are 20 people in the room. It is not possible you have answers for everybody. So you are always working with some amount of subjectivity, some amount of assumption. So that's the next best advice which I have got.
I can see that playing out, Prashanth. It's just, I think for some of our audience that could be a bit uncomfortable because, again, one thing accounting prides itself on is accuracy. But then again, that's accuracy of historical stuff that's already happened. A lot of the analytics we're doing is to drive future business performance and more, immediate and longer term business performance. So, I don't think we can judge analytics by the same sort of level of accuracy. And hence why the importance of having a compass as opposed to GPS. It's more directionally correct. It's pointing in the right way, and you might have to pivot at some point, but it's not a GPS. So I love that. I love that analogy. It's great. So thanks for that, Prashanth. And I suppose, look, in terms of resources, obviously we mentioned your book. Is there any sort of other resources or books or whatever our audience should go check out?
Okay, the first thing is, I will show you a few things. Is my book, the two books. The first one is Data for Business Performance. The next one is Analytics Best Practices, which I constantly review. Though I wrote it, I continue to review it. Okay, this is what it is. Then I have a few books which I constantly review at work, which is this one from Ralph Kimball, the Data Warehouse Toolkit. Okay. So this is one thing. Another favorite book of mine is this one, which is Essentials of Business Analytics, which is all about doing analytics with Excel. So I'm a big fan of, though I believe in Python, I try to practice what I preach. And one of the things is think big, act small. So before you start doing something big, start doing something small. And my small of analytics is try to do it in Excel. If it works in Excel, it will work in anything else.
Exactly. By the way, that's a really great bit of advice for audience. I mean, a lot of us use Excel in finance. So that is a great bit of advice. Don't go and try and develop an analytic solution, play with it in Excel, develop it there, get it to work, and then you can use the Python or the R or whatever you need to do to go and scale it, put it at scale.
Yeah, one thing is out of the box. The next thing is about the people itself, right? Like you need to work with the people. Like we are fortunate at this time, like we have great social media platforms like LinkedIn, for instance. There is so much of knowledge people are sharing about their insights, about tools, about say if you need any help, you need to know who is that person. And if you're connected to the right person in LinkedIn, they have the right answers for you. Yeah. So one thing is about reading and everything. Other is about people as well, your network. So leverage your network. And I have been fortunate to have some great people in my network from any place within the data life cycle, right? From technology, right? From analytics, right? From machine learning and deep learning and all those areas. So the next thing is about build your right networks.
That is an awesome bit of advice, actually, Prashanth. I think there's too many people, whatever profession, accounting or whatever, we jump too much into the technical side and the theoretical side and the book and the reading, as opposed to actually, it's all about people at the end of the day. So, go and ask them for their experiences, what worked well, what didn't, hard-won lessons, Again, great advice. And I suppose, look, should our audience wish to continue the conversation, I imagine LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect with you at.
Oh, LinkedIn is the number one place. But people can connect with me in LinkedIn. I generally accept everybody's invite because I just want to meet smarter and better people. I want to be surrounded by the best of the best. I'm always open. I'm always an open connector. So I don't decline anybody's invite.
That's great. And Prashanth, we've not really even mentioned about your institute work, and I want to make sure we get the right resources there. So if our audience are wishing and following up around your work you do at the institute, where can they find out more about that?
So they can go to my company's website, dbp-institute.com. So they can see what work we have done, what are the clients talking about our work. You can also look at the team we have. And we are a small team, but we have done some great impact in a very cost-effective way to many companies.
Yeah, music to finance professionals' ears.
Yeah. Yeah, we are always looking to help clients get more value out of data and analytics.
That's awesome, Prashanth. And look, I suppose as we're wrapping up again, I really liked the way you started the show, our interview, with the analogy that, data analytics, we're all using it. Homemakers, finance, accountants, policemen, whatever, we're all using it. I suppose then in terms of our audience, would you have maybe any parting thoughts for them before we wrap up?
I would say this advice would be even applicable for myself, not just for your audience. I always believe that it is three things which really matter for having a successful career. One is having the right experience and knowledge, number one. Next, number two is having a kind of a decent bank balance, so that you are confident. You know that you can, even if things go south, you have a few months of bank balance to survive. So that's also builds your confidence as well, so that you are not deviated from your long-term goals and strategy. Because if you don't have good money in your bank balance, you might compromise on your career and take up something which will distract you from your long-term goals. So money is also important. And the third thing, which is equally important or even more important than money and education these days, is about your network. So I say your network is your net worth.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that back to the money again. Your net worth. So
yeah, so it's a combination of these three things which will help. So that's what I've been telling myself. How do I build more skills? How do I make sure that I don't spend money unnecessarily? How do I work with smarter people so that I learn better? That's what I've been advising myself to and my kids. And this, if somebody has to ask what's my advice, this is one line I would tell them.
Hey, that's awesome, Prashanth. What a way to end the show. So look, thank you so much for coming on and investing your time with Strength in the Numbers today.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, Andy. It was great talking to you.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding, and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me and we can connect. And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. When all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities, and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.